What's up, fellow car enthusiasts? Welcome to an episode of Behind the Boost presented by MAPerformance. I'm your host, Charlie Main, and today we plan to bring you some of the behind the scenes of the automotive world.
Leo, how you been?
Hanging out, living the dream.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen you since we all started this work from home stuff. What's new?
Not a whole lot. Been really seizing the opportunity to work on stuff around the house. Obviously, I've been guilty of doing nothing but really buying car parts, prioritizing those over groceries and everything else. I feel like we're going to have a little bit of a reduced race season due to all of this. So I've been taking that opportunity to really hammer out any projects that I have here at home and on the car, just to get it up to where I want it before it's time to hit the racetrack. So, yeah.
I heard some rumors maybe a few weeks ago at this point now about a transmission swap.
Yeah, so I had Kyle Larkin, one of our R&D specialists at the shop, our tech at the shop, stop by and help me out. We swapped out a transmission here on the ground of my garage where I'm located now. It was a giant pain in the butt, but we got it done, and then the car was ready to go to wiring. So then after that, loaded it up, brought it over to Buddy Adams' house, and we're getting it all rewired with Deutsch connectors and a nice fuse panel and a nice overhead switch panel. And like I said, just I'm taking this time to try and beautify things as much as I can and get things to where I don't really have to worry about them when it's time to go racing, because that's really what I do in my spare time. Is I work on my car and I try and get it to the point where I want it to be, and then we take it to the track and we try and test it, try and beat PBs. And I think a big component to that is making sure that the products that you're using and the parts that you're using are the best they can be. You know what I mean? Even if it means you got to spend a little more, even if it means that it's going to take you more time, it'll save you in the long run. So that's been my outlook, and I've been using this time to kind of do that, as well as projects around the house. So.
Yeah, and just so everybody here knows, I think everybody here by now knows Dalen, who's down in the bottom right for you guys. And then I'm Charlie. I'm the host here, I guess. And then for everybody who's jumping on now, this is Leo. Leo, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at MAP? I know we were just talking mid-sentence about your car, but
yeah,
I think it would help if these guys know who you are, what you do, and then why don't we dive back into the car talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Leo Vishnyak. I am the sales manager at MAPerformance. I've been at MAPerformance collectively probably like 3.5, maybe 4-ish years. My math could be wrong there, but started out as a sales guy, and I still am a sales guy for the most part. I just have slightly modified duties, I guess, and kind of just grew within the company to being in the position that I'm in now. Great place to work, and yeah, that's what I do. If you guys ever call our main line, if it's not me that's picking up, it's one of my guys. You know, there's a high probability that you might even get me. So yeah, that's what I do, and there it is.
Yeah, no, awesome. So and it's actually surprising because it's not very often. Like, I mean, I can speak for most of all the sales guys that I've gotten to know a little closer. You guys have just like an overwhelming amount of knowledge that you can rattle off like that. You know, even when it comes to pretty much any car related question, you've got an answer for it. Even just before we got started, you know, obviously these guys couldn't see, but you and Dalen were talking about some parts, and it was just like instantly you had a recommendation for him, depending on, you know, even the questions you asked him were based around what his needs would be. So it's amazing. So anyways, guys, my point behind that is drop your questions in the comments. If there's a question you have, Leo and or Dalen are more than capable of answering them. Today, we are taking any questions about anything. Maybe even whether or not you think a hot dog is considered a sandwich. That's came up on here before. So
Yeah, man.
So,
I think part of the beauty of calling and talking to any of our sales reps is that, most of them, like, don't get me wrong, I definitely don't know everything there is to know about everything, and I don't think there's any sales rep in the company that knows everything about everything. But the beauty of having, six guys, they're gonna have, six different areas of expertise. Not every single person you're going to talk to is going to have the same knowledge on X as they will on Y. So if you need an Evo guy, there's, we've got multiple Evo guys. But if you need a guy that specializes in EcoBoost stuff, we have a guy that specializes in that. If you need a guy that specializes in Honda stuff, we all kind of specialize in that. So yeah, we definitely are a solid treasure trove of information. I, as well as several of the other guys, I mean, whenever I'm not at work, I'm always working on my own stuff. I'm not necessarily a mechanic by any means. I think if I was to leave sales and go be a mechanic, I'd probably fail miserably, but I can tell you exactly how things work and how things are supposed to work and how to put together a car, whether it's a car that makes 300 wheel horsepower, or if it's a car that you want to make 1,000 wheel horsepower with. No matter what it is, the concepts are all fairly the same. So
yeah, for sure. Well, it looks like we've already started getting a few questions pouring in, Leo. And, if the people are asking, we got to give them the answers.
sure.
So we got Dad Bod Season 610 in the chat. Wants to know, when will the Stage 3 for the 19 STI be ready? And this may be a better question for you, Dalen.
Yeah, we're working on. I have a couple out in like kind of the beta tester world right now. Just because of kind of the complexities of a tune like that, we want to just make sure it's perfect. Like we've had it on our shop car for about a year now, I'd say, maybe a little bit less, and then have it out with a couple beta testers. I would really like to get the green light to have it out by, I'd say, 2 months ideally. But don't hold me to that because there's always changes and updates that might be needed to it. So hopefully soon.
Absolutely. Then we got Derek Lee. Derek Lee, thanks for the question. What dual pump should be used to reach 700 plus ish on an 86 HTZ?
So I'd probably use two of the new Walbro 525s and just make sure that they're hardwired and that they've got a proper electrical source. That you'll be able to do that easily with ethanol, no problem at all.
And what hotline should they give a call to find one of your lovely associates?
It's going to be 1-888-MAPerformance.com. You can feel free to ask for me. You can ask for Kevin. You can ask for Tony. We've got guys available 12 hours a day to answer any need that you might have on your project. You can also, a lot of us have our Facebook set up to deal with like work stuff as well. So if you ever find me on Facebook, which you're more than welcome to do, you can find me on Facebook, shoot me a message. I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can and get you any answers on anything that you need car related. So, because I'm terrible at any other advice.
Financial data.
Yeah, I can't help you with finances. I definitely am really bad at math. I can't necessarily help you with relationship advice either, but I can help you with car advice and the relationship you have with your car. Absolutely.
If the financial advice you're looking for is how to get rid of all your money quickly, he's got you.
I'm the guy.
Yeah, cars tend to be a money pit. And I know you and I've had a few conversations, Leo, about your car. It looks like you're in the garage?
Yeah. Yep. This is the quiet space that I have. My girlfriend's actually also working from home, so she's taking calls in the living room, and I've got an office in the very back. And yeah, I figured this would be a better place to be. The dog's not in here bothering me. So.
You got the car by you?
I don't, unfortunately. The car is over at my buddy Adam's house, currently getting wired. So I have a empty garage just with a bunch of stuff all over.
Well, why don't you? I know what kind of car you have, but why don't you tell these guys a little bit about what you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell these guys a little bit of what I'm working with and what I've worked with, just to kind of give you a little backstory. But I guess I kind of grew up around cars. My dad's been a mechanic his entire life. He's ran a small shop his entire life, and I guess I grew up being around cars. Not really ever, like my dad never had hot rods or anything by any means, but I remember he definitely had several cool like GMC step side trucks back when that was a thing in the '90s with crazy like ground effects and stuff like that. And he definitely had a couple cool Cadillacs, and so I kind of grew up around that. And when I turned 16, my dad being a mechanic, we bought a fixer upper. My first car was a Subaru SVX, and I drove that, the only car designed for air to not go in the windows when the windows are rolled all the way down. Is a fantastic design. That was my first car. Shortly thereafter, I got a Mazda Speed 3 and started, getting familiar with like bolt-on parts and Cobb off-the-shelf tunes and things like that. And then I think I was about maybe 18 or 19 years old. I bought a Subaru STI. I built that with the help of some friends at the shop. That car made about 550 horsepower. It was a super fun car. While owning that, I bought an Evo. That was a ton of fun. Sold that pretty quickly. That is one of the purchases that I regret the most. Or actually, one of the purchases I regret selling the most. It was a great buy. I bought that thing for like $7,500 and put $1,000 worth of work into it. It only had like 120,000 miles on it, which is kind of a lot of miles, but it was a clean car nevertheless. And so then I sold that, and then I sold my Subaru, and then I realized, if I want to go fast, I'm going to try and do it by any means necessary and do it for the least amount of money, or what I thought would be the least amount of money. At this point, I could have really built anything I wanted to, and it would have made relatively the same amount of horsepower. But I bought a Fox body Mustang from my buddy for pretty cheap. I yanked it out of his grandpa's driveway in a small town here in Minnesota. And after that, I drove the car for maybe a week and a half, and I thought, yeah, this is cool and all, but like every Fox body out there that I see is pretty damn fast, and I want to make this thing pretty damn fast because they don't weigh anything at all. So I thought, what better thing to do if we're looking to, start a budget build than to have a budget car that doesn't weigh a whole lot, put a big motor in it, and make a ton of power. So I decided to do that. So we found a LS 6-liter. Actually, I got it from Dan Carey, who is the director of marketing at MAPerformance. It was sitting around for a while on one of the pallet racking assemblies that we have at the shop. He bought it to put into his Impala. He never put it in his Impala, and it was sitting up on the rack there for a while. And one day I just walked up to him and I go, "Hey man, I have this Fox body and I'd love to buy this 6-liter for it because I think that would be awesome. I think I'd be able to put a massive turbo on it and make a ton of power." And so we came up with a number. I ended up doing that, put that all together, put a massive turbo kit on it, and here I am as the owner of a Fox body Mustang with a 6-liter Chevy engine in it and a giant turbo. So yeah, that's kind of my fun car now. It's not really much of a street car, so it's tough to call it a fun car. But for the several seconds that you're in it, it's certainly fun.
Right. While we're on the topic, we got a bunch of other questions, but I thought this was pretty relevant here. Mr. Circle wants to know if you love putting a Chevy heart in your Fox body like every good Ford owner does.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite like redneck sayings of the year is probably "built Ford tough with Chevy stuff." So like I've been saying that a lot ever since I did that.
You gotta have that phrase.
Yeah, it's been great, but yeah, I don't know. I guess like Ford small block stuff, I'm not really the true. Here's the reality: is at one point before the whole LS talk, I did really want to put a 2JZ in it. Like that was my real goal, and I wanted to build a super duper tough 2JZ. Put a turbo 400 behind that and have like a super duper fast track car, somewhat street car. But things didn't align. I didn't have the funds because realistically, like I'm an import guy at heart. I might like have a car that has a Chevy engine in it. I might have a American made car, but I like the import stuff at heart. That's really where my heart lies. It's where my passion is. So yeah, if I could do it all over again, I'd probably put a 2J in it instead of a 6.0, but it is what it is.
Yeah, decisions.
Yeah, lots of them out there. Big world.
Right. Let's. I'm gonna fire through some of these questions here that we got people asking here. Matthew Oswald's got a couple in the chat. E70, E85, does the 15% variance make any sort of difference with tuning as far as power output?
Negative. I think we've done some testing in house, Dalen, that you can speak on as far as past what point we're seeing power gains and past what point we're not. I'll let you elaborate on that. I know you took place in a lot of the testing. You were the right-hand man for that stuff, so I'll let you elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it all comes down to like application, what's being used, the power level it's at. Like there's no right like specific answer to that, but for the most part, the difference between E50 fuel and E85 is fairly negligible. But as with anything, the more ethanol you get in the system, the better it's going to cool, and that's kind of one of the benefits of having more ethanol. So running E85 or a more consistent fuel is it's going to cool better. But actual power output, for the most part, no, you're not going to see a big difference to that at all.
Good to put that one to rest. Taylor Krause, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. So much glorious facial hair in one chat.
I miss you, Taylor. I hope
we miss you, Taylor.
I feel like that one was mostly.
I hope you're out in the desert right now, like just wandering around, enjoying the freedom.
Yeah.
Then we got another one from Matthew. Currently running Kelford 214B cams. Wow, that was a hard one to read. On my Evo 10, at what power level would you recommend upgrading to the 214C cams?
Yeah, so I mean, the 214B is a very similar camshaft to the GSC S2, part number 7010S2. The fact that I know that by heart is terrifying to me. Anyhow,
this is what I was talking about for the record, by the way.
Yeah. So I guess they're very comparable, and the GSC S2 is really a cam that's good to about the 700-ish horsepower mark. In fact, you could probably push it even further than that, but you begin to kind of get into a territory where you're at 800, 900, 1,000 horsepower on a 4-cylinder engine. You're looking to maximize the efficiency everywhere and anywhere that you can. And doing that with a camshaft is a big part of it. So I would probably put a 214C in an Evo at about the 800 horsepower mark. Like when you're looking at big T4 top mount turbo kits, with 6870s or a big Sidewinder with a 6870 or anything like that, would really be when I'd look into a 214C.
Mainly when you have to rev it out to make power.
Yep.
Well, that was a wealth of knowledge. See, this is what I'm talking about, though. See, the guys at MAP, so I'm relatively newer to the staff than probably a lot of people that work there now. And it's still amazing to me how much you guys actually know, and you don't give yourself credit enough. But to somebody who's newer to walking through those doors, it is consistently surprising.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, I surprised myself. Like I said, the fact that I know part numbers for camshafts off the top of my head is kind of weird. I know the part number of an AEM wideband by heart.
Right.
I know the part number for an AEM fuel pressure gauge by heart. Like that kind of thing is really weird to me, but I'm in that environment 8+ hours a day. It's what I enjoy. It's what I love. And I think, the main reason that I like doing what I do is not just to be around cars, because that's cool and all, but I think it's because I was that kid that didn't know anything about cars either. And I was that guy who had this, no joke, one of my biggest first purchases for car parts for my Subaru, I went to MAPerformance. I drove all the way from St. Paul, 35 minutes. I talked to a guy named James Elmore, who no longer works with us, but I talked to that guy, and I spent $3,000 just off the cuff walking in, and he gave me a ton of information to go off of, and that's why I started shopping with MAPerformance, and that's why I wanted to become a part of the organization. And James had a huge play in what I believe to be, you know, the right way to go about selling somebody aftermarket performance parts, and it was cool. And ever since then, you know, the reason I do this is to help people who want to get into modifying their car, want to get into wrenching on a car, want to get into doing a project on the weekend, into doing that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, no, and I know, I mean, for me personally too, it's like getting into different projects. It's good to have, you know, people, you know, that I can just walk over and say what's up and ask questions
Yeah.
to. I mean, the thing is though, if other customers are looking at parts, it's just as accessible to them. You
Yeah.
just don't look across the desk. It's, you know,
Right.
you just pick up the phone and call.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of people think that we might just be there to like answer tracking inquiries and like, you know, support
Right.
them with their returns and cancellations. And although part of our, you know, in-house division is, you know, accountable and tasked with delivering that kind of information to our customers, the other half of the staff is there to simply guide you guys through your progress on your car builds. You know what I mean? And to give you insight on what it is exactly that you should do, what it is that you shouldn't do, what's a good idea, what's not a good idea, and things like that. I think, especially now, there's so much information out there on the internet that's not necessarily true, that it's really tough to make an incorrect buying decision based on information you read on the internet. We deal with selling these parts every single day. We deal with customers who spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on these parts, and we have firsthand accounts on whether things are successful, if this combo and this combo work, if this part with this part works, if you know, at this power level you should buy these camshafts. That kind of information is what we're here to deliver. So
yeah, no, and it's in previous lives, I'm not sure if maybe you saw it or not, but we were talking about some of like the vanity that goes on today in building a car, and how a lot of people's decisions are influenced by what they think would, you know, do well on like social media.
yeah,
And whether that even like actually like would benefit their, like they buy certain brand names for the clout that may not be beneficial like to what it is they're actually going to drive the car for. And I'm sure you guys are the ones on the other side of that who get the calls and have to talk them out of it, or help them, at least guide them to something that makes more sense.
So yes and no. At the end of the day, like I'm here to sell you anything you want, right? So like I'm not going to necessarily talk you out of anything, but I'm definitely going to advise you that, you know, the decision you're going to make is not going to be as good as the decision that I have recommended for you to make. But if you want to buy, you know, X brand coilover instead of Y brand because you saw somebody on Instagram has that brand, unless they're just not necessarily a great item, which we try and carry and sell only the best,
only good stuff.
But you know, there are things. If you're telling me you want to road race your car, you know, I'm probably going to recommend one coilover over the other. And if you want to buy the other coilover because all of your friends have that coilover, there's not necessarily much I can do there. I mean, you're going to do what you want to do there. I think the beauty of building a car, as somebody who's done so, I think the beauty of it is the thinking for yourself part of it. You know what I mean? And like I've made some mistakes when building cars that have cost me a lot of money, but that's the way that I've learned on what things work best. You know, luckily these days you don't have to make those kind of mistakes because places like MAPerformance exist where you can pick up the phone and go, am I making the best buying decision right now? Is it important for me to pay attention to what's on Instagram, who's putting what on what car, or is it just important for me to really get the facts from somebody that knows them, you know?
Yeah. No, I think it's all really important stuff just to be able to, again, have access to and things like that. Let's see. I want to backtrack here. I don't want to skip over anything. We had some good questions. Vesna's tire bling. All right, I got a question. I've read stories, but for forced induction vehicles, is it best to have a 3-inch turbo back or a 2.5-inch turbo back as far as making the most power? Because it's best to have exhaust flow versus an NA vehicle that needs back pressure. There's actually more, I believe, in that. Oh, yeah.
I read it. I can kind of take that one. Much like the E85 question. Like, it just depends. Like, there's actually some fairly simple math equations that tell you the volume of the engine, how much air is going to move through it, what size primers you want, what size exhaust tubing you want. Like, the big question of 2.5 versus 3-inch, like on a turbo car, for the most part, it's not going to be universal to each setup. I would say for 95% of the cars out there, 2.5 is going to be just fine. It also depends on if it's going to be 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, et cetera, but 2.5 is going to be just fine, upwards of 600-700 horsepower in most cars. Usually you want to see a larger downpipe. With 3-inch just kind of became the cultural norm for the tuning industry, and people kind of don't want to hear the answer that 3-inch isn't needed. In fact, sometimes it's more difficult to get ground clearance with a bigger pipe. For most 4-cylinders producing less than 600 horsepower, 700 horsepower, 2.5 is going to be just fine.
Yeah, it all like Dalen mentioned, it all really boils down to the volumetric efficiency of what that engine is actually able to output in terms of exhaust gases, right? So,
yeah, a lot of variables in that question.
I think I saw a question on there that said, "What's the best way to get a hold of us?" There's a million different ways. Like, the phones are obviously right now kind of the busiest, but the easiest way to talk to a person. Email is another solid option. Leo, do we have live chat up and running right now?
I believe that we should. You can hop on our live chat and try and get a hold of us. You can even just, if you have like an order that you have a question on, or you need to get pointed in the right direction, you can even shoot me a message, LEO space VISHNYAK on Facebook. Feel free to send me whatever inquiries you might have. I'll delegate them throughout my team to make sure that you're taken care of. The best way to get a hold of us is any way that exists, truth be told. As mentioned, 12 hours a day support. If you call us, you're going to get somebody on the other line. If you email us, you're going to get somebody to respond. If you Facebook message our business page, we're going to respond. I think there are certainly times that are busier than others, no doubt about it. There might be some hold times during busy season that you run into, but at the end of the day, we have a ton of different mediums out there for customers to get in touch with us, and in one way or another, I'm certain that we'll be able to get you taken care of. So if you have a question in particular, you can feel free to, like I said, send me a Facebook message.
Yeah, sounds like Lovett was maybe having some issues getting a hold of somebody, so Lovett, if you want to shoot Leo a message directly, he'll get you taken care of.
Yeah, send me a Facebook message. Again, LEO space VISHNYAK on Facebook. Shoot me a message. I'll go into my filtered messages right after this and make sure that I get you sorted.
Perfect.
And something that's come up in the past live streams, a very important pressing question to ask. Leo, how do we pronounce your last name?
Vishnyak.
There we go. Now the world knows.
Yeah.
Vishnyak. Got it.
Yep.
All right. Now that I tried it, let's go through this one here. I want to get some of these questions answered from the chat. If you guys got them, drop them in there now, because I'm going to be going through these right now. So Skylar wants to know, when will Matt make an intake for the 06, 07 STI? Dalen.
Realistically, it's probably not something we're going to make parts for. It's an incredibly well taken care of market. There's so many good products out there for those cars, and so many good brands that we already deal with that unless we're going to provide kind of the full experience of intake, downpipe, tune, et cetera, we're probably not going to make parts for it. But like I said, it's one of the biggest reasons because of how well served that market is and how many people are already making quality products. If there was a bunch of junk on the market, no one made something good, we'd be all over it. But unfortunately, that's not the case. There's a lot of very, very well thought out products for that car.
Michael wants to know, I have a engine air intake on my Civic Si, and your straight pipe race exhaust sounds awesome. But will you or do you have a cold air intake for 19 Civic Si?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a cold air intake for a 19 Civic Si, and I'd be more than happy to get you invoiced on one. I'm pretty sure we even have an unboxing video and a review of that intake in video form on our YouTube. I'm almost certain that there's several customers who went out of their way to even make before and after sound clips. It does sound super good. If it's something you're interested in, again, feel free to shoot me a message on Facebook or give us a call. We'll get you taken care of for sure.
Right on. Matthew had this next question. Currently have the AMS 3.5-inch intake on my Evo 10, getting really high intake temps. Do you have an intake you would recommend that would move the intake away from the engine bay or provide some kind of shielding to protect against those high intake temps? Currently around 600 to 650 wheel on a map built sleeve 2.0. Hashtag MAPerformance for the win.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear. So, I mean,
Hell yeah, brother.
really at that point, making that kind of power, I could certainly recommend you to, one or two options that are out there that have a built-in airbox, but likely with the level of modification that's done to the car, those off-the-shelf options probably won't work. I think with a lot of the current off-the-shelf options, all of the intakes are really located. The cone filter and the pipe assembly are located in the same position, so it's going to be really tough in the same place. It's going to be really tough for you to have a huge difference in intake temperatures, but a good idea would probably be to see if you have anybody local to you that'd be willing to maybe fabricate something custom, something special for you with the integration of a airbox to see if that might knock those intake temperatures down.
And the other big thing is that on a turbo car, intake temperatures into the turbo are not always going to be a telltale factor. If you're running a good intercooler and the actual intake temps in the intake manifold are good, I wouldn't be as concerned about it. Obviously, like the colder you can get the air, the better. But if the intercooler is a good intercooler, it's doing a good job, I don't think it's something you'd really need to spend a bunch of money on.
So we got through everybody's questions. You guys don't have any more? Keep them coming. Vesna, you had an addition to your question. We were asking, she was talking about 2.5-inch versus 3-inch exhaust. But she did want to clarify that her question was specifically for her Mustang EcoBoost. Because I know we mentioned that it had a lot to do with the vehicle itself.
I mean, with those, 3-inch is definitely the most common. I mean, once again, depending on the power levels, if it's stock turbo, modified, et cetera, 3-inch is definitely the standard. Like, I would say almost everybody's going to do 3-inch because the market kind of demands it and people want it. But if there was no such thing as like public opinion and what people like preconceived notions, like could definitely get away with 3.5 on those or 2.5 on those. But yeah. I think that the most common you're going to see is going to be 3-inch.
I mean, I have even on my car, it's kind of comical, but I have a 5-inch discharge on my turbine housing. So I have a 5-inch exhaust coming out of my bumper on my car. And even for a 8-cylinder, larger displacement engine, that's even overkill. Realistically, I could have gotten away with probably a 3.5-inch pipe and made the same amount of power coming off the turbo.
Yeah, the downpipe is going to have the biggest effect in that. You want the largest downpipe you can possibly fit in most cases. And then for anything under 1,000 horsepower, 2.5 and 3-inch are going to get the job done.
Yep.
Yeah, so Leo, next on the docket here would be, I think, the hot dog hamburger question.
Yeah.
These are like the weird questions that we get that we had submitted actually originally that people wanted us to ask Kyle from 1320. But I figured there were some good questions just to ask anybody because it seems to be a popular debate.
Yeah. So the question is a hot dog a sandwich? Is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, and again, this is wondering if you've ever looked up the definition of a sandwich.
Yeah, I think by definition, it's absolutely a sandwich. But like, I think that I don't know, man. That's just it. Just almost it's weird. It makes me uncomfortable almost because like now my perception of a hot dog will change forever. Now I'm going to say, give me a sandwich with
and visualize a hot dog being presented to you.
Yeah. But at the same
time, the definition is this: An item of food consisting of 2 pieces of bread with meat, cheese, or other filling between them, eaten as a light meal.
Yeah.
Hot dog only
And
has
I
one
think the
piece of
hot
bread.
dog
That was my argument 2 weeks ago. That'll be my argument today.
that it's a
It is
sandwich?
joined. The bread is joined together, and a sandwich is technically 2 pieces of bread.
Yeah, that's a good
What
point.
happens when you break the bun?
Then you might.
And you have a sandwich, but like
Then you've
that's
got
not
a
the hot
sandwich.
dog's fault. That's your fault.
Yeah. Right.
We're into modifying cars and hot dogs.
Yep.
Have you guys seen that? It's a hot dog bun with a peanut butter, jelly, and banana in the middle of it floating around Facebook. And if you have
No.
seen it, have you tried it yet?
No, but I'm definitely gonna try
Do
that.
it. It's glorious. As a poor person who has eaten many weird foods to try to pay for car parts,
Yeah.
banana, peanut butter, jelly, hot dog bun is honestly top level. Like whoever came up with that is internet high five. Like good job of coming up with that because it's so convenient. I don't have to slice the banana. Like the
Yeah.
work is already done for me. There's a lot of options for what kind of bread you can get your hot dog bun made out of these days. Like,
Right.
highly recommend.
I think
If you
that's
see a
gonna be the
video
new wave.
that's on YouTube, I just
I
want to
think
see it.
hot dog foods honestly are gonna become the new wave. I mean, like I feel like as a society, anything that's like done for us ahead of time is like greatly appreciated. For example, like the whole theory of like Amazon and the whole reality that is Amazon. I'm convinced at some point there's going to be like a Amazon, not just an Amazon now where like somebody comes and like gives it to you in your hand, but it'll be like an Amazon before, like before you even think about it, it'll already arrive at your door. Like it'll just be programmed. Like there'll be chips. Like I don't know. Maybe that's a long shot, but I think hot dog foods are going to be very vastly appreciated in the future here because like if you think about it,
Convenience is key, man.
that's the key of it, man. Like if I'm in the garage, I might just instead of going inside to make a sandwich, I might just have some hot dog buns and some lunch meat, and I don't have to even get a knife out to slice the loaf of bread. It's all done for you. It's beautiful.
Speaking of life-changing food items, do you guys own waffle makers?
I own a breakfast sandwich maker, but you can make a waffle like bun for it out of that's revolutionary.
You're talking about one of those. I know what you're talking about, but no, I'm talking about like a real waffle maker. And if you do, just put stuff other than waffles in there. So like cinnamon rolls, cook that in there. You got some stuffing, leftover stuffing, put that in the waffle maker, and then put like mashed potatoes and meat on top. Life-changing. You could do pizza waffles, where it's just like you mix up all the ingredients of pizza and waffle maker. Like it cooks in like 2 minutes, very low effort. For all of our car people watching that need to switch to something other than ramen, I recommend finding a used waffle maker. Cookies, yeah, like just cookies. You can cook literally anything you want in a waffle maker. Hash browns, crispy
Dude,
on
I'm
both
sure you
sides.
could.
Highly recommend.
Awesome. Like you could do them like there's a steakhouse here in the cities called Pittsburgh Blue, and they have like this, like it's this thick of hash browns, and it's got like blue cheese and bacon bits in the middle and like hot sauce. But you could definitely do that same thing just in the form of a waffle, and that would be just mind-numbingly amazing.
Yep, do that. Like there's just honestly, you could probably put ramen in the waffle maker once you cook it and make like a crispy ramen burger. Like, but we're not just here to give you car part advice. We're here for life advice, cooking advice. Like, there's just nothing we can't do.
A live cooking suggestions show.
I've been doing that a lot too. You asked me what have you been up to? If I'm being honest with you, I think I've like cooked more in the last. And don't get me wrong, like I cooked a lot even before then, like because I like to make cool stuff. Make stuff that's fun to look at and fun to eat, right? And I've been doing that even more so now. And I think I'm going to try my hand at like making sushi at the house. I did it once ages ago and it turned out horrendous and it was just so bad. But I think the key to it is just buying the proper ingredients. Like
it's 100% the key.
Yeah, not just using regular rice.
And the rice vinegar, it's all key.
So I think I'm going to try that because like one thing I have been missing amidst all of this is probably. So I was missing like a really well cooked steak, and then I realized that I'm just being silly and I can cook one on my grill. So like I got that out of the way. But sushi, man, I'm a huge fan of sushi, and I haven't been able to have delicious fresh sushi. And I think it's time to really take the reins into my own hands, and maybe payday Friday, get some ingredients ordered up and delivered.
I'll tell you this: it's a lot of effort for the result, but especially
that just makes it more worth it.
Yeah.
No,
we got some real car questions here, though. These guys need us to answer questions about I-beam versus H-beam rods, and we're out here talking about sushi rice.
Well, we got both.
We can address both at the same time. All right. Why I-beam versus H-beam? Is there a reason to go one way or the other? Why wouldn't a person just always opt for I-beam rods? The internet wants to know. You'll give them an answer.
I think so. I'll speak on this, and then I'll let Dalen talk about it because he recently solidified a pretty sweet new relationship between us and a newer rod manufacturer. But realistically, you asked the question of why wouldn't a person just always opt for an I-beam rod? A lot of times, I'd probably say most of the time it's a budget thing more than anything. There is no reason why you would not go with an I-beam rod. I mean, basically the main difference between an I-beam rod and an H-beam rod is the design and the structural integrity behind the design of the rod. In many manufacturers' cases, the material that the I-beam rod is made out of and the H-beam rod is made out of is actually the same. It is just the design of the actual rod itself that makes the structural integrity of it a lot stronger. So when you say what's the difference? Well, it's a difference in design, sometimes a difference in materials, not always. But why don't people always buy I-beam rods? It's because on average they're probably $250 to $350, sometimes more dollars than the alternative. So, if you're building a budget car and you're looking to make, 500-ish horsepower out of any given 4-cylinder engine, you can typically get away with an H-beam rod and not really have to worry about it. And on top of that, save, $200 to $350. And if, again, you're looking to make it a budget deal, a budget build, and you're looking to save some dollars, then that's a great option. But, yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, if I was swiping your guys' cards for you, I'd probably just buy an I-beam and call it a day so that you have that part of the equation out of the way. But I'll let Dalen elaborate as well on
that. You guys keep giving me these answers that have like a million different things that could like be the reason for. So, I mean, I-beam versus H-beam, you're usually able to get a little bit lighter rod out of an I-beam. The actual design of an I-beam is just going to be stronger. It's going to take more load. It's going to like if you're thinking of like compressive and like pulling apart loads, like an I-beam is just going to be stronger. But yeah, kind of like Leo said, it's usually going to be more about the material it's made out of than the rod itself. I-beams are usually going to have a slightly narrower like footprint. So for the most part, you're going to have less block notching or clearancing, which just is a little bit nicer. But a lot of manufacturers just save the materials, like the better, stronger materials, for the I-beam and kind of just throw all of their eggs into that basket, whereas the H-beam is usually a more budget-oriented rod. So usually a slightly cheaper material, a quicker, easier design, like just less goes into it because it's more of a budget-minded setup. But it's possible to make just as much power with H-beams as it is with I-beams in some motors. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Leo said, Sands is a rod manufacturer we've been working with a lot recently. Great product. They have their sports series and the performance series, which is an I-beam and an H-beam. And the main difference for that is material. Like the H-beam rod is a budget-oriented piece. It's a quality material, but it's just not as nice as the material used in the I-beams. So it's kind of a loaded question. You could go both in either motor, but I-beams are just going to be a stronger setup because of the actual design.
Yep.
All right, here's another one here from Matthew Gustafson. This is a good one. He recently bought a set of FIC 1200 injectors for his Evo 10 from us about a month ago. Never opened them yet. He also has a GTX 3576R waiting to go in, and he thinks I think I need that turbo is going to max out on my stock block Evo 10 on E85. Do you recommend I step up to the FIC 1650s? And if so, am I able to send back the unopened injectors and pay the difference?
So, yeah, I'd love to answer that for you. A lot of these questions I find myself answering from the end of them and circling back. So I'll do that in this case. But so as far as the return portion of it, yes. So the way that works is you'll call us, contact us, send us an email, whatever is the easiest for you to do. You tell us exactly what you just told us. You go, look, I think I might max these injectors out. They're not opened. I want to return them and get a larger injector. We can absolutely do that for you. Our return policy is typically about 30 days. However, if you're returning them to purchase a new product and the old product is unopened and it's a like product that you're exchanging it for, we can typically make that happen for you. We'll take the return in, refund your account for a short period of time, and then typically we'll have you replace the order and send you a larger injector in this case, which would potentially be needed. I can touch on that. That turbocharger is going to max out the capability of that stock engine. No matter what injector's in there, like if you've got a non-closed deck Evo 10 engine in there without sleeves, without a CSS or anything like that, that turbocharger is going to potentially disintegrate that block, and that's just the reality of it. What kind of injector you run and what size injector you run is going to be dependent on a couple different things. One of the most important things when you're rating an injector is to know what kind of fuel you're going to be running, right? So if you say, hey, I want to run a 3576R with a FIC 1200, will I be able to, really max out the capabilities of my factory, engine? The answer is, yeah, on pump gas, you'll probably be able to do that. No big deal. But if you're looking to run ethanol, you're going to cut it pretty close with what the limit of that injector is as far as the, maxing out the duty cycle goes. I think in either case, that injector, unless you're planning to run that, run that turbo and then try and wick it up after you build the engine, those injectors will be sufficient enough injectors to max out that factory block. If you're looking to have a set of injectors that you're going to make power with, not just on this turbo, but once you build your block on a different turbo with a big turbo kit, potentially looking into a larger injector would be a great choice. However, I think it should be noted that the larger the injector, the more work typically I've noticed the tuner has to put into getting the idle right, and the more work goes into, setting the car up to be streetable. Now, if it's just a track car and you just put it in a trailer and drive it to the racetrack, then that's fine. But if it's a daily driver, I think drivability has a big key play in exactly what size injector you go with, because bigger isn't necessarily always better. But Dale, maybe you got some other insights there, but that's really my outlook on it.
Oh, yeah, it also depends on the brand of injector, like what you're buying and like the controls for them. Because yeah, like Leo said, for the larger injectors, some brands of larger injectors are a little bit harder to control, like on idle and lower fuel amounts. And some brands like Injector Dynamics and a few others put a lot of effort into making sure that you can run those larger injectors on like a stock reflash ECU or like very low pulse widths, very low amounts of fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, bigger is always better. I mean, to answer specific to your question, 1200 with a 35, what was it, 82 on
76.
85, 35, 86, 76, like. Yeah, on ethanol at 1200, you're gonna max out the injector long before you max out anything else, unless you run an incredibly high fuel pressure, which like that car won't need.
Evo 10.
No, I was just reading that comment that Cody James put up that bread is sliced with a water jet, and no, I did not know that. That's super neat. I've seen like the mechanical knives that do it, but
You're telling me.
You should find a YouTube video and link it in this chat because I really want to watch that because that sounds super cool. I love
How
it.
does the bread not get soggy?
Well, no, it gets soggy, but it dries out. Like,
Look,
you don't get it right
so
away.
here's a fun fact. This is just crazy barbecues with Leo, right? Let's say I've had, some hamburger buns out, and there was a beverage that was spilled on them. I waited for them to dry, but when they dried, they were like a weird, like crunchy feel. Like, so, how do you go about that? Is it like a different kind of water that they're slicing it with, or is it not water that they're slicing it with? Question, man.
I'm gonna have to go down the YouTube rabbit hole later to really get any sort of answers here on it. And then Matthew Gustafson has some good questions here about how many beers does it take to install a downpipe on an Evo 10, and then how many beers does it take to install a downpipe on a high mileage Evo 10? See, you're missing one caveat though. Is that high mileage Evo 10 a Midwestern Evo 10 that's lived in the rust? Because I think a normal Evo 10, casual 4 to 5 beers, rusty high mileage Evo 10, like you got a case or two before that thing's coming out.
Yeah, and I guess it all also depends on I think the biggest thing that I've learned throughout the years of owning and modifying cars, when people go, how long does it take to do this, or what would a shop charge me to do this? The biggest thing you have to really consider, even for example, if you're asking how long it'll take you to do it, the biggest thing to consider is if you have the proper tools for the job, and 2, if you have the proper infrastructure, meaning if you have a lift or if you're doing it on the ground. I can tell you that if I was doing a downpipe in this garage that I'm sitting in now with no lift, a decent amount of tools, I'd probably need at least a case to do it. Now that's because we're in Minnesota. The bolts are rusty. It's a higher mileage car. We
drink a lot.
So I'm climbing all around. I'm trying to get, into weird, odd parts of the engine bay that are really awkward and uncomfortable to get into. So yeah, it's probably going to take a little bit of time for sure.
And Leo, it's the same thing. Leo has 2 tools. He has a hammer and a crescent wrench. So that's the other side of this is if you don't have the right tools, you're going to need a lot more.
Yeah, this entire box is just filled with hammers and crescent wrenches, just different varieties, different sizes, different brands.
It's just all about keeping it simple. Work with what you know.
Cody Wills has a question here about the newly revised fuel hanger for the Evo 10.
So I'm a big fan, really, of anything Radium Engineering makes. I think they make a top-notch product. I think they back their products extremely well. I think everything that they make and everything that I've had the pleasure of putting my hands on has been very intuitive, very user-friendly, very explanatory. For example, it's the little details, but with Radium, their hanger on the top is labeled with what the outlet is, what the inlet is, what lead is going to be the positive lead, what lead is going to be the negative lead, or what the posts are labeled, I should say, for the power to the actual pumps. So just little details like that make their products a pleasure to work with. I'm a fan. I think Dalen's a fan as well. I think me and Dalen share similar thoughts about Radium Engineering. They make a great high quality product. So.
No, and that new basket is actually it's just a unique product. The option to run with the Evo 10s, it doesn't have to be a twin pump. It could be a single pump, but it's nice because if you're running that setup with, say, Walbro 450 or something like that, it makes the hardwiring of the pump easier. You don't have to drill out a bunch of stuff. It's already got a return port built into it, so you're not drilling stuff back into the factory top hat and drilling the wrong size hole or drilling it in the wrong spot. You don't have to drill anything to run wiring through it. It's just really, really convenient, even if it's not for a twin pump setup. Just a lot of trick little features that make life easier for the install on these cars. So I'm a big fan. Like Leo said, Radium makes good stuff. We've been dealing with them for many, many, many years. But yeah, I was really, really excited because there's a couple of quality twin pump hangers for the Evo on the market, but they don't solve the needs of people that just want to run a single pump and have other problems to get over. So it kind of touches on a bunch of stuff that some of the other ones don't touch on for the not big power guys.
And Skylar's wondering, what fuel setup would you recommend for a stock downpipe, Tomei, catback, and a Grimspeed cold air intake to keep up with the higher airflow 06 STI?
So, really, I would probably start with a DW 300 pump or maybe a Walbro 255. And a set of 1,000 cc injectors. Now, what I think is really important though is to really think about how far you want to go with the car, because a lot of the fuel system, you guys have to remember, a fuel system is regulated as far as the pressure goes. So, like putting a bigger pump in your tank with the expectation that you're gonna try and make a ton of power down the road, there's no downside to that necessarily. Again, like we talked about the injectors, it's not always best to get the largest injector you can get, depending on what brand injector you go with. But I think you really have to think to yourself how far you want to go with the car. But a great start would be a nice, simple drop-in Beachworks 65C or even 300C, or a Walbro 255. Make sure that you have it hardwired. I can't stress enough how important it is to wire your pump in off a relay and not just run it off of your factory wiring, which was rated for half the horsepower you're trying to get out of the car. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean with that car specifically, like if all you have is a stock downpipe, stock cat or like catback and intake, like realistically, if your stock fuel system is working properly, I would just leave it all as is. Like Leo said, if you're going to modify the car, design the fuel system you want around the future modifications. But with what you have right now, I would keep it bone stock.
Mm-hmm. We got one from Glenn. Glenn wants to know, 1.5T Civic currently have MAP downpipe. Are there any gains to be had with doing the front pipe as well, or is it just a personal preference?
I could probably touch on that one. Hi, Glenn. Glenn is running a lot of our parts already. The front pipe, you're not going to see huge gains. One of the major benefits if you're running our setup, which I know you're not running our exhaust yet because we don't have one for your car, and he's going to make a comment about that. I'm sorry, Glenn. I'm working on it. He's got an EX, so our SI stuff doesn't fit. The front pipe itself is not, you're not going to see huge power gains on like the lower power level. One of the main reasons we designed ours to work with our catback was to get rid of kind of some of the factory smaller transitions, which eliminates some bolts. It eliminates some weird kind of flange connections that are kind of inconvenient, more so than power. So it's a kind of a personal preference. I don't think you're going to see a huge power gain from it yet.
And then Matthew just wanted to say that you're 100% right about drivability issues with larger injectors. I'm running ID 2000cc injectors with dual Walbro 450 fuel pumps, and I have idle issues if the RPMs go too low. Oh, we got another comment. If the RPMs go too low, and it has issues when revving at low RPMs. So
you should call Leo and order up a set of the new ID 1700s. So like the new X series injectors from ID are super awesome, and they put a lot of work into running them in lower fuel amounts. So you should, when you're done with this, call Leo, tell him I sent you, and then buy them, and then bring them to your favorite tuner that's good at his job, and you are going to see a significant improvement in how that car operates at like lower fuel consumption.
So that, and I think the biggest thing that is really important for I think a really important thing to do when you build a car is to become very cordial and become almost friends with your tuner, because you're going to need them a lot. So not only could there potentially be could the injector just be too big and you might have to just go with a 1700, but there also could be some adjustments that could be made within the fuel map that can potentially fix that issue. So I think becoming friends with your tuner and having him on a first name basis, being able to text him, shoot him a text, call him, whatever, send him a message and go, hey man, I'm experiencing some issues. Could you take a look at this? Is super crucial, because when you get a car tuned, it's nice to be able to have decent drivability out of it, on top of it making just a boatload of horsepower. So I'd recommend having that conversation. And if all else fails, feel free to give me a call. I'd love to sell you a set of those new IDs. Dalen is correct. They have put a ton of work into making them way nicer to drive around town.
I think the biggest thing is like the technology advancements in the past few years on high-powered cars that get driven on the street. Like the technology that's gone into that, from the standalone engine management side all the way down to the fuel injectors, all the way down to the tires that people need, like it's all trickle down. Like the more money people are spending on developing that, the more we're going to see parts that are going to benefit guys that maybe aren't making 2,000 horsepower, but still have a 800-900 horsepower street car they want to drive around a bunch. It's just it's a really, really awesome what we're seeing come to kind of our customers out of some of the high level racing side of stuff. And Injector Dynamics is one of those companies that like seeing a huge trickle down. Like their new pump controller is a single pump that's going to run like, I think we're seeing 1,300 horsepower on a single pump on ethanol. And then the injectors, you're seeing these 2,000 horsepower GTRs driving around on a single 1,700 cc injector set.
Yeah.
And that just benefits you guys. It gives you guys cooler parts to play with and gives us options to kind of upgrade when people aren't having their needs met.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I mean, just even from now and looking back, 3.5, 4 years ago, even all the way back to like when I started, modifying cars, the amount of advancements that are made is incredible, and the amount of parts available now to you guys as consumers that are just of the utmost top-notch quality. Motorsport quality parts trickling down into our realm of business is awesome. It's incredible, and it makes it a lot easier because, like I said, it's kind of like having the right tools for the job, but having nice parts and having a quality made part makes doing the work to have fun driving your car that much easier. It's just it's part of the game. I mean, there are parts out there that are more affordable and easy to get access to and not as expensive, and typically those are the parts that are going to be a little bit tougher to install. They might not come with instructions. They might not be thought out to the best of the manufacturer's ability. But the beauty with where we're at now is there's so many great parts out there that are designed incredibly well, and it makes the entire process from the purchase all the way to the install to driving the vehicle a breeze in comparison to what it might have been 3-4 years ago. So
yeah, definitely. I don't want to skip this one here before we run out of time here, but Christine Vang, it sounds like she's having some issues with an RMA. Is that something she could shoot you a message, Leo?
yeah, shoot me a message. I'll put you in touch with our customer service staff, and I will make sure you are taken care of.
And I also just reached out to a couple of our team members about it too. So there's going to be a couple people looking into it, and we'll figure it out. But to touch on it, yes, the kind of the state of everything right now is having a bit of an impact on us. We do have our full staff, we have our full teams working, but we are getting a lot of inquiries, and with a lot of vendors either being closed down or people just not working at full capacity, we do have a little bit of delay sometimes. So I do apologize about it, but Leo, the sales team, the customer service team, basically everybody that's customer facing right now is working their butts off, and there's a lot of communication coming in right now. Like we really appreciate the support that everyone's been giving us in kind of these not awesome times, but with that, we're just getting a lot of people hitting us up, both for sales, for customer support stuff. And I know our guys are going as fast as they can, and I apologize if there's any sort of delay on our end with that.
Also, Glenn said he's going to drop his car off on Friday.
Thank you, Glenn.
I want to get through the rest of these questions here before we wrap it up, because these are some good ones. Miguel wants to know, he's preparing to install these beautiful MAP parts on the Subi intake and downpipe. What are your thoughts on running an HKS recirculating blow-off valve with the MAP Stage 2 tune?
I can tell you now. I mean, my thoughts are as follows. The reality is there is really no need to do so. The reason being is up to our Stage 2 power level, the factory bypass valve does plenty fine in bypassing the excess air out of the charge pipes. So with that being said, when you go, what is your thought? Well, my thought is that, yes, it could potentially sound cooler, but the factory valve does its job. And on top of that, our tunes are designed and developed around a specific subset of parts. That means stage 2, for example, is our intake and our downpipe only with any catback of your choice. There could potentially be a variance in the way the vehicle operates with a different bypass valve and or blow-off valve, and we can't in good faith guarantee that there's going to be compatibility with a different blow-off valve. Now, it being a recirculating blow-off valve, that's going to substantially raise the compatibility bar. But realistically, when we design these tunes, they're designed, again, as mentioned, around a specific subset of parts. So I can't go out and say you can run a SSQV blow-off valve with our stage 2 tune, because the reality is we haven't done that testing to be able to give you that answer. The true purpose of our tunes is to let you guys, the consumers, have an easy solution for after purchase kind of tuning and whatnot. So it makes it so that you don't have to go get a Pro Tune for necessarily an intake and a downpipe, right? So that's really the purpose of them. So when you say, again, what are my thoughts? I think it's a sweet upgrade, but I can't necessarily tell you whether or not it would be compatible, because we just haven't done that kind of testing. And Dalen, I'm sure, could probably agree.
Yeah, and Leo's spot on. Like with that one specifically, we haven't done it. I mean, most of the recirculating blow valves are just fine. We haven't seen any issues with it. There are definitely customers out there running them. We, like I said, haven't really done it in-house, but from what we've dealt with, we haven't seen any issues. I totally understand the want to switch it to just the super sequential. The HKS one has got the noise. Like, I think me and Charlie have talked about this in the past. Like, it's just the most distinctive noise on like the face of the planet. And I totally wanted to talk about that. But as long as you're sticking with a recirc one, like if you do vent to atmosphere, no, that's not gonna work at all. But if you're sticking with a recirc one, you should be just fine.
Yep.
Not needed, but if you want it, you're gonna be okay.
If you want it, send me a message or give us a call.
Yep. Matthew wants to know, have another question about built engines. At what point is it necessary to sleeve the block on an Evo? Not everyone does that, is running 600 plus, and it just seems that just as many people run into issues with sleeve blocks than non-sleeve setups.
So yeah,
and
I
it
can
looks
touch
like
on
you're talking about the 4B11T.
Yeah, I can touch on that. So first thing, there's several different types of sleeves out there. There's a wet sleeve and there's a dry sleeve. And I won't necessarily get into that, but what I will get into is the type of sleeve that you choose is going to have a large impact on, from what we've seen, the success and longevity of that build. On top of that, when you go, what power level are sleeves necessary in a 4B11? We've seen the real limit of that engine be around 500 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds of torque. It's not necessarily the horsepower that kills those engines, because there's people on the internet, there's people that have called me that make 600 horsepower on a stock Evo 10 block with no sleeves, and they're running a massive turbo that's just improperly sized, and they're making 450 foot-pounds of torque. So they're on a limited lifespan with that engine. So when you go, when is it necessary? I would really say anytime you're touching the threshold of around 500 foot-pounds of torque and you want to continue making power beyond that point, it would certainly be beneficial to sleeve the block. And if you call us and get in touch with us, we have a couple different options. We can either do a CSS, which is a cylinder support system. It's essentially a block guard that goes in place of the water jacket. Super duper nice, looks mint. Taryn from Cosmic Motorsports has one in his engine. I can gladly get you guys some pictures, send those over. Or you could do one of our LA sleeve blocks, which is our stage 2 block currently, and that's a great option as well. I would probably recommend that for the super duper high horsepower folks out there. But feel free to message me outside of this. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have. It's a lot that goes into that conversation, but to just circle back, 500 horsepower is probably where I would think about putting some sleeves in there.
This is another good one. Michael wants to know, are you guys working on a bolt-on fuel system for the 10th gen Civics? And when is your expected production date for the 10th gen turbo kit?
So the bolt-on fuel system stuff, we have a port fill option out there. We have an adapter. It does require you obviously to wire it in and plumb it and all that kind of stuff, which we've talked to customers. We have been working on like a full line kit, wiring kit, stuff like that. Just seems like the interest isn't there yet. If I'm wrong, obviously let me know. We are also working with a company right now on a modified high pressure fuel pump. It's going really well, but there are still some kinks to kind of work out on the control side of it and continue to kind of push the car until we find the limits with it. Hopefully that will be a pretty solid option for customers to kind of keep up with that, kind of anything over 350 mark. As far as the turbo kit goes, we're kind of on the final phase of that. I think me and Charlie here were just recently talking about the release side of that. We're probably looking at about a month and a half on the release on that one.
Yeah. Looks like Matthew had one more question about the ID1750cc injectors, drivability improvements that you mentioned, Leo. He's running 2,000 cc injectors and wants to push 700 on E85. Would the 1750 support that power level?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would. Matthew, I would definitely find Leo on Facebook and shoot him a message as you kind of go along the build too. It sounds like he'll be able to help you out and answer all these questions, because as you go along, more questions will arise, as they tend to. Vesna's Tire Bling will take this last one, and then we gotta wrap things up here. Is there still any R&D projects going on with the 1517 EcoBoost, or has Matt pretty much done complete it all as far as performance goes?
I won't say there's nothing in the works, but the past couple of years we definitely haven't had huge projects with that car. Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of big gains out of the parts that we already have for it. If there's something specific that you're looking for or something that you can't find, reach out to us. We're kind of always open to different ideas of what to do with it. We've had some in-house projects with the vehicle over the last couple of years that have been worked on, but nothing that really found its way to market or was really needed. But if you have something that you can't get or you're having a hard time get, or it's just not fitting your needs, reach out to us. We're always open to ideas.
Definitely. Well, anyways, guys, that about does it for today. Thank you so much, Leo, for carving some time out of the day to jump on here and help answer people's questions. For everybody who's watching right now, if you found this to be useful, let us know in the comments down below. Let us know if we should bring Leo back for a round 2 on the Facebook Lives to answer your guys' questions. If you guys want him back, let us know by leaving a comment or share this live. Otherwise, guys, thanks again for tuning in with us. My name's Charlie. I'm the host, and we will see you next week at 3 o'clock with somebody new.
And there you have it, guys. Hopefully you learned something that you can either take with you into the garage or bring with you to the track. Tune in next week for another episode. We'll see you then. Is that good enough? Yeah. Okay.